Hi class, this is Professor Koji, Management 360, and this is Chapter 5's lecture, Gaining and Using Sustainable Ethical Power and Influence. Harvard professor Linda Hill explains that powerlessness can corrupt. She says that people with power can shape their environment, whereas the powerless are destined to be molded and constrained by theirs. How often have we heard of people who believe they had no choice but to engage in some unethical act because they did not have the power to change the way things are usually done? Is an extreme example of this the people following Hitler and the murder of all those innocent people, or even some of these other recent corporate scandals as well. People said that, well, I had to do it, I lose my job, right? These are the powerless, or they think they're powerless. Oops, sorry about that. So assumptions about power and influence. So what are some of the assumptions that we can draw from when it comes to power and influence? Well, first is that power is not a stable characteristic of a person or a group. It could change. Power shifts, as they call it. Power must be actively sought and replenished. Power is negotiated in a relationship rather than given. You have power in a relationship only if the person believes you have something that he or she wants or needs. Makes sense. And power is situational. You may have power in one situation, but relatively powerless in another. That could be, for a manager, a situation, you could be dictating who on your team gets this next great project. You have all the power. And conversely, if your manager has a special project that could be given to one of her direct reports, you're powerless. That's a simple example. But why does influence matter? Because we have an increase in uncertainty and complexity in the world. Increased information availability, which increases the amount of information we must process. And mutual dependence and limited resources. This is why having influential marketers in your company, or being influential in various ways, is vitally important, because there's so much information out there. There's so many things to read. There's so many videos to watch. How can you be differentiated in this market of the sea of information? And that's where influence happens. Characteristics of people with sustainable power are achievement-oriented, action-oriented, politically astute, adaptable, competent, self-aware, socially skilled, interpersonally influential, and trustworthy. These are the things that's going to sustain your power over time. And these things need to be worked on. Being adaptable is not a one-time thing, for example. Adaptability is your ability to work and change with the time, when the times change, when pandemics happen, for example. You have to be adaptable. Competent is just being sure that you're educated and very well versed in whatever you're getting into. So say if you run a company and you're leading a bunch of people and you're in charge of setting direction, and you want to pivot the company to look in a different field, different vertical of technology maybe, and you have to know what that technology is. You have to be competent enough to make sure you're leading with influence and also with power. This continued on with characteristics of people with sustainable power are information gatherers. They need to know and have a yearning to know all the information about what they're doing. So they can be not only a step ahead, but information is certainly power within itself. Great listeners and have an open mind, aware that managing perceptions is at least as important as managing reality. Some say that perception is reality. And if you're not managing people's perceptions, if you're not getting in front of them, then the falsities of perception can outweigh any fact or any reality. Willing to think in shades of gray rather than black and white, adaptable and ethical. Being ethical is incredibly important, having a good moral compass, make good decisions. And if you're not making good decisions, if you're If you're undermining people, you're going to lose your power. Foundations of ethical influence. So you explicitly tell people what you want to achieve, right? Again, foundations of ethical influence. So you're opening up about it. You're being selfless. You're willing to put the interests of others and the organizations ahead of you. You treat others right. You treat everyone with respect. You don't abuse the rights of others. You're being vulnerable. You leave yourself up to be reasonably open to be influenced by others. And you support your requests. You back your requests up with honest supporting data. What is influence? Talked about influence. Now let's define it. The deliberate, systematic process of getting others to support your ideas, getting others to say yes to your requests. Interpersonal influence. So we'll talk about this in the next few slides, but social style dimensions. And again, we'll get into more of the definitions and some of the characteristics of each one of these. But you see in the box here, the 4 boxes: analytical, driven, a driver, expressive, amiable. So on the left is more, you see if you're on the left-hand side, you're more probing, the top is less responsive, to the right is more assertive, and bottom is more responsive. And depending on where you are, so if you're driven, if you're a driver, you're less responsive but more assertive, right? If you're expressive, you are more assertive, but you're more responsive. And you kind of falls in these kind of social styles. All right. So analytical is thinking oriented, data driven, detail focused, procedure centered, needs security, routine, past, present. It's not whether you win or lose, but how you play the game. So we'll go to a driver: action oriented, results driven, bottom line focus, needs risk and change, future focused. It's whether you win, lead, follow, or get out of my way. So amiable is relationship oriented, acceptance driven, harmony focused, collaboration centered, needs security, routine, present. It's not whether you win or lose, but how many friends you have. And expressive, vision oriented, dream driven, big picture focused, people centered, needs risk and change, future focus. It's not whether you win or lose, but how you look. So people fall in these different categories. So start thinking about which one you fall into. The assumption about the style. So though you tend to have preferred styles, you use all 4 styles every day. It's not a one size fits all. And depending on where you are right now will obviously depend on which social style that you have, or you're engaging in at the moment. Each style has its strengths as well as potential for weaknesses when carried to extremes. Your style does not limit your behavior. It merely indicates your comfort zone in that particular situation. The style you use may depend on the context. Some people are different at home than they are at work. That's very true, especially in the sense that you're more professional. Maybe your guard is up a little bit more at work. When you're at home, you're more relaxed, you're more playful. If you have kids, or if you will have kids, you're the fun dad or mom, or sometimes you have to be the one who puts the fist down. Not literally, but figuratively, that it's dinner time, stop playing on your tablet. So you play different roles at different times for sure. And you can be more effective if you can develop skills in each quadrant. It's being adaptable, and the more adaptable you are as a manager to situations, the better you'll be as a leader, because you're able to adapt to the situation that you're faced with, or that your employee puts you in or needs you to help with. It's very important that you don't become that you don't just focus on one thing, that you try to understand, at least appreciate what you need to do when you're in those situations for what you need to change your social style. Social versatility, the ability to interact with many different types of people, control your style, preferences, use different styles when your preferred styles aren't likely to get results. This is just changing it up. If you're trying to drive things and people are being defensive, then you kind of have to pull back and choose a different social style. It's not going to work. And you just have to recognize that and be, again, adaptable to it. So social versatility is not going into a situation with a style, but allowing the situation to tell you and dictate what style you should use. Assumptions about versatility. So can be increased through mindful, deliberate practice, shows empathy and respect, is more appropriate in some situations than others. So examples like tension, conflict, and problematic relations, high stakes interaction, and needing to persuade someone. And produces rewards like increased effectiveness, more promotions, higher salaries, more mentors, and particularly effective in boundary spanning. Improving your style effectiveness. Understand the 4 social styles. So don't just gravitate to one. Maybe one or the other you're a little bit weaker and you want to improve, that's fine. But make sure you're understanding and grasping what each of them can do for you. Recognize your own style and associated strengths and weaknesses. Observe others carefully. So you may actually know people, and you probably do, who fit in each one of those quadrants, those social styles. And maybe next time you're interacting with them, really pay attention to what they're doing. It's kind of funny that they do fall into those characteristics pretty well. Be willing and able to adapt to people with different styles. Just because they may not be, you may be in a style for which you may be in a driver mode in which someone else is in a driver mode, and you both are driving in opposite directions. You gotta maybe sometimes flex a little bit and adapt to that situation and that person. 6 universal forms of influence. So click were, leverage basic human instincts. All human beings respond automatically to certain situations. These automatic responses are shortcuts that save us time and effort when we need to make decisions. Certain triggers are more likely to invoke a yes response from someone you are trying to influence. We influence others by communicating and behaving in ways that are more likely to trigger a yes response. So a good way to get a yes response, and there's many, this is actually a really good book. I have this book, actually. I'm actually looking at it right on my bookshelf. There's different ways to influence people, and the goal is to always influence people ethically. But for example, a good yes to get a yes is you see this in the mail all the time. You have different charitable organizations will send you or your parents, they'll send them free like address labels, and then there's an envelope for them to donate. It's easier to get someone to say yes when they're giving you something. So if someone's offering you a free sample, not only you may like it, but you feel a responsibility to reciprocate. Being reciprocal is an influence technique, but you're more likely to reciprocate back and give something back, right? So there are different ways and different styles of influence. So the six universal forms of influence, and there's 2 on the next page. The first, I just actually mentioned this, reciprocity. I can't say that word right now. Anyway, being reciprocal. People want to repay favors in kindness. It's in our DNA. When someone does something nice for us, we want to do something nice for them. We're just wired that way. And we're social beings. We want to be liked. And we want to make sure that we're whole with people. We don't want someone to be doing too much for us. And these are normal people I'm talking about. We want to make sure that we were paying those favors back, or we're paying it forward is another way to look at it too. When you're doing someone does something nice for you and you do something nice for someone else. Scarcity. People want what they perceive as scarce. This is such a marketing tactic for people. Call now, there's 1 left, or there's 5 left and they're going down fast. It's a blowout sale, only a few remaining. Scarcity drives behavior because it creates urgency, and urgency is very important in marketing. Authority, people tend to obey authority and experts. Why then, if you think about like a toothpaste commercial for Colgate or whatever it might be. They have either doctors or actors in doctors coats, or because people believe in the authority and the experts. It's very, very important for the credibility aspect, and that's what they're trying to convey, the credibility. My product is credible because this actor in a white coat is telling you that it is. Commitment and consistency. People are more likely to say yes when they believe doing so is consistent with their beliefs, commitments, and past behaviors. So this is not in here, but I read the book, and I remember this from the book, is that they did an experiment where they were putting campaign signs out on people's lawns, and they're seeing what was more effective, to ask the neighborhood people just to put a big gaudy sign in the front yard, or use a different approach. And when they're asking people to put a big gaudy sign, some people agreed, but a very low percentage. However, another part of this experiment was they go up to the house. They have this little 2x2 window sticker. They say, "Hey, we're looking to promote this candidate or whatever, this cause, whatever it might be. Would you mind if we put it in your window?" And they say, "Oh, of course, yes, that's okay." And then a week later, 2 weeks later, they go back with a gaudy sign and ask the same people, "Hey, since you already did that, you put that sign in, this is just a bigger one we're going to put in your lawn." And of course, the results show that the people that said yes to the little sign were much more likely to say yes to the big sign. So commitment, consistency, it's pretty big. Just to continue on, census and social proof. People decide what to do based on what they see other people doing. 9 out of 10 people prefer this toothpaste. 4 to 5 doctors prefer this toothpaste. The social proof gives you the confidence to say, yes, this is for me. Amazon is genius when it comes to this, because when you go on an Amazon and you're looking at the ratings and what people rated them in the comments, right? We in a collective, we and me as well, most people, if you see 5 similar products, let's say that you're looking to get a new camera, right? And you found 5, we'll tend to go to the one that has the best ratings, right? And we'll shy away from those that have less high ratings. That's just how it is. It's social proof. People are proving out already what or proving that product that it works, that it does what it says it's going to do. And we're more likely to see a movie if your best friend says it was awesome, right? It's social proof. And that could be dangerous. It could be false social proof. Your best friend could have said this was a great movie. You went and it was terrible. So just be careful with that, and don't always follow the crowd. Don't always group think. So liking, people support people they like and who believe are similar to them. So with my business, people like me, but I took a lot of time in order to do that, because I support people. I support what they do. I provide them great feedback. I provide great culture. All these things are important to influence folks. Using reciprocity. There it is, reciprocity rule. Got it. All right, use a reciprocity rule. So give information, support, resources, gifts, concessions. Give first. Do this as an ongoing behavior in the spirit of generosity, rather than only when you want something from someone. This is building up some goodwill with people. And this is just being a good person. Good people tend to have more opportunities with more people as they build relationships up, and other people feel more compelled to give back to them. Remember that you get what you give. If you give help, you'll get help. If you give trouble, you'll get trouble. Do not negate your contributions in the reciprocity norm with phrases such as "no problem" and "it was nothing." The reason why you don't do that is because if it's nothing, then the person receiving it thinks, okay, since there's nothing to them, I don't have to do anything back for them. Resisting the reciprocity rule. Frame favors as sincerely given. So this is when you are trying to resist them, when someone trying to do this to you. So frame favors as sincerely given, and you can choose when and how you want to repay the favor. Reciprocity. As the son of a college professor myself, I hoped my sons would go to college, but after our oldest found that the courses he wanted to take at the university were full, he got discouraged. I went to the registrar. I heard he was a stickler for rules, so I was floored when the man said, "What classes would he like?" and took care of the problem on a computer. Seeing my surprise, he explained that years before, he was in the same situation as my son. He met a professor, took him into the enrollment office, and got him in every class he wanted. That man was your father. By chance, is he still alive? I nodded. He smiled. Good, he said. Tell him we're even. This is not my personal story, by the way, but it's a good one. And this is to pay it forward. And this one actually was a pay back, but it was a pay forward because it was his father, but you get what I mean. Using the scarcity rule. So emphasize actual scarcity. You can't have a sign in front of your building that says, we're running out of plants, and you got 10,000 plants in visible sight. Show uniqueness features, emphasize exclusive information is good. So resisting the scarcity rule, going back to how you can resist it. Don't rush to decisions because in response to panic emotion triggered by scarcity. And take time to think through alternatives. Bad decisions happen when you make a decision urgently and you haven't considered everything. You generally will make the wrong decision. And the people who are trying to push you to that know they can have you make a wrong decision. Using the authority rule. Develop a reputation for being an expert. Let their credentials be known. Show the high status. People support your ideas. Be professional. Are all important to the authority rule. Showing your authority. Showing you're an expert in something. And now with the internet, anyone can be an expert in anything, it seems like. Resisting the authority rule. A trust in authority and expert should be given critically. Check credentials of claimed experts. Be careful of the halo effect. An expert in one area is not necessarily an expert in other areas. So if a chef is giving you tips on farming and they've never farmed before, just because he's a great cook doesn't mean necessarily he's a great farmer or can give you proper advice. Use the commitment and consistency rule. Start with the small requests and then build to larger requests. Connect your requests to the person's voluntary stated beliefs, public commitments, and past behaviors, and have people put their commitments in writing. I mentioned an example of the signage before, which kind of falls into this as well. But if you're trying to resist the commitment rule, be careful of what you commit to because you'll hold yourself accountable. And we do that. We want to give back. As I say, we're wired that way. Do not feel obligated to commit to a larger request because you committed to a smaller request. And that kind of goes back to the example of the little sign in the window. Just because you put that little sign in the window does not mean you have to put a big gaudy one in your yard. And that could be metaphorical as well to other things. Remember the words of a billionaire Warren Buffett. When you find yourself in a hole, the best thing you can do is stop digging. Very good advice for a very smart person. Using social proof rule. Show that similar others are doing what you are asking the other person to do. Show the others have succeeded by saying yes to your request. Share testimonials with similar options and experts. Similar others and experts. This is done in those infomercials like you wouldn't believe. They'll show the product, they'll see how great it is, then they'll cut to people like quote actual customers who are saying how happy they are, how much weight they've lost, and how much taller they've grown, whatever it might be. Social proof is a huge influencer when it comes to making decisions. Resisting the rule of social proof. Realize you're more susceptible to following others when you perceive them to be similar to you, when you want to fit in or in certain times. Remove as much uncertainty as possible, so learn as much as you can. When birds of a feather flock together, they turn into sitting ducks. Another good quote there. Using the liking rule. So when you're trying to get others and influence others using the liking rule, be kind, genuine, respectful to everyone. Identify and build on similarities. Genuinely compliment people. Find opportunities to have positive cooperative interactions. Use body language that shows approval and interest. repair damaged relationships by doing the above quickly. How to resist the liking rule. Someone trying to do this to you. Broaden your perception of attractiveness as well as the diversity of your network so that you're not overly dependent on the knowledge, viewpoints, resources, or influences of a few. And step back and separate your attraction onto the person from the merits of the case that is being made. There's a little quote here. So if you can master one element of personal communication that is more powerful than anything, it is the quality of being likable. I call it the magic bullet because if your audience likes you, they'll forgive just about everything else you do wrong. If they don't like you, you can hit every rule right on target and it doesn't matter. Some words of wisdom, and I thought this is pretty funny. You should have an open mind, but not so open that your brain falls out. Pretty good. You are most susceptible, this is kind of our last slide here, but you're most susceptible to influence when these happen. You have to be very careful about this. It's one thing to be the influencer. It's another thing to be influenced and make poor decisions, especially with your team. So you're more susceptible to be influenced when you're uncertain, when you're under pressure, when you have limited information, or when you haven't done your homework, when you don't have a diverse network to rely on, and when you believe you are not easily influenced. So your ego gets in the way. You're not going to influence me. I know what I'm doing. That could backfire. So thank you so much for staying with me this long, and I hope that lecture was good. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know, and I'll be sure to address them. Thank you. Have a good day.